Testing, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay, let's fucking do this. Hi, welcome to Fred on Film. Fred Asquith on Film. Foff. Fred Asquith on Film and TV. Foff at. Foff and brackets at. You know what I'm saying? It's Fred on fucking Film. Foff. So today we have got a fantastic agenda. Thanks to everyone who's come on board to this, by the way. I've really felt like a real nice response to this. So, did you see the way I shook my head when I said that? Those watching on YouTube. All right, I feel a real nice response to this. It's been really nice, like to feel like I personally, in myself, feel like I've hit on something that like feels natural to me. And it's so funny that it's the simplest of ideas, just talking in a room about film. But it's actually like weird how long it took me to get to that point, doing all these different film podcast ideas, some of which are down the bottom of the very profile I'm posting this on. So you can go and see the RIP old ideas resting in their graves, open casket, just down at the bottom of the profile. But I've also felt a similar response from the people, not masses of people, but definitely more than I've had for any other kind of now deceased podcast idea. Just like people kind of getting on board and like they're up for it, and I'm up for it too. So hi and welcome. You are seen. I'm having to keep my phone notifications on today because I'm getting a phone call from a drain expert at some point. He might be down the road and can't find my place because we've got a blocked drain in the backyard. So you might be able to be privy. You might be privy to that call, even, which is very exciting. So today we're going to go through probably probably 8 things. But probably the highlights of that are Sinners. I saw it. I saw Sinners. Warfare. I saw that too. In Berlin. What? And also, I've got a funny story about... Do you know what? I'll save it. And update on the junket. The secret junket that I'm not allowed to tell you about, that I told you about last week. Yeah, loads of stuff. I'd actually like to start with a bit of personal... a personal point of view / story / bit of background / backstory. It's something hit me. I can't remember what. Sorry if you can hear that siren. I can't remember what made it hit me, but something hit me where I was like, why do I love film? Like, why do I have this passion in film? And so many people love film. It's not a niche passion to have, but there's loads of different reasons why you would have that passion, right? And there's loads of different reasons why I have it. But I think one of the reasons it hit me that I have a passion in cinema is because I'm from a really, really small town in the north of Yorkshire in England. I always feel uncomfortable about saying the actual town name. I don't know if anyone's going to go look at my school records or some shit. I don't know. Anyway, Scarborough. And don't look at the school records. It's actually fine. I was great. I was a good kid. And I think that the reason for that is because in Scarborough there were actually 3 cinemas. It was actually kind of oversubscribed in terms of cinemas when I was growing up. And fun fact, I actually worked at all 3 across my time there. But it always felt like a really kind of prestigious or exciting or kind of like special thing to do, to go to the cinema. And because there's nothing really else to do there. Like when I was younger, you were either going to the beach for an ice cream or you were going to one of the nearby seaside towns to that beach for an ice cream, or you were getting fish and chips and sitting in the car, like at the top of the hill. There was this big hill. Or you were like, well, maybe when I was a bit older, you were like going for a pint. But like, there's nothing. Anyone from a small town will know what I'm saying. There's nothing. There's old people. That's all there is. There's lots of old people. And so having a cinema, it's like a window into the world, into worlds that you just have no contact with. I'm not saying living in London you necessarily have contact with like the world of, I don't know, fucking Titanic or something. But like I definitely didn't in Scarborough. So going to the cinema, it feels like, oh fuck, like why? I'm like, oh, you know, I'm like, oh, like it feels like you're really kind of interacting with things that you just couldn't even dream of. Almost like people who originally went to the cinema in the 20s felt like what the fuck? That was me at 10 years old in Scarborough. What is it? It's moving. It's moving. You know? And that really kind of fostered this feeling of like, God, it's a special thing to do. Going to the cinema, and it felt like a cheeky thing to do. Go to cinema as a 9-year-old, get an entire bag of minstrels that is your calorie limit for the week as an 8-year-old, right? Snaffle them all in the trailers and just watch fucking. It just felt like a fancy thing to do almost, and even fancier when like if there was a big film release like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. God, I'm touching on Harry Potter again. Yeah. We would go to the View Cinema in York. I don't even know if it was the View when I was growing up, but it is a View now. And we'd go on a little like 50-minute drive to the View Cinema in this like shopping complex. And that felt like a massively special trip. And so basically I always upheld the cinema as like this big thing in my life. And then, like I say, I ended up working at all 3 cinemas in my hometown. I mean, I killed 2 birds, 1 stone with 2 of them because they were owned by the same bloke. Lovely bloke, if you're watching. And then the theatre, there was like a theatre more for stage plays, but they also had a cinema on the top floor, and I worked there the longest. I worked there for like six years or something. And one of the things I wanted to touch on was this sense of has anyone ever had like Stockholm Syndrome with a film? So what I mean by that is, has anyone ever seen a film so many times that you actually love it? Probably more than it even deserves. So like, say we've all got favorite films that we've watched a lot. So like Titanic that I just mentioned, I've seen Titanic 8, 9 times. I've seen Whiplash like 1,000,000 times. But have you ever seen a film that you don't like so many times that you actually end up liking it, right? That's what working at a cinema is. So the best example for me is there's the Adrien Brody legacy sequel to Predator called Predators, and it came out in what was it, 2009 maybe? So I would have been like 16 or something like that. I can't do maths right now. And I actually paid to see that film with my dad when we went to Silverstone to watch the Grand Prix that year. And you know, we enjoyed it. It's all right. We enjoyed it. We just came out like 2.5 out of 5, like 5 out of 10 kind of film, right? Anyway, then I went back to work at the theatre. Went back to my life after the Grand Prix ended, and Predators was on at this cinema. Anyway, as a staff member, there had to be one staff member who sat in on the screening, at least at this cinema, because they were checking for people recording the film. But also, as I just said, the town is full of old people, and so you literally was sat there checking to see if anyone had a stroke, like anyone choked on a wine gum. You know, like you really were child-minding old people. Not so much with Predators, but anyway. So I ended up seeing Predators sat in on the screening as a staff member 8 more times. 8 more times. And it was really interesting how, like, I kind of quite liked it when I paid to see it. And then the second time you're like, I didn't really need to see this again so soon. And then the third, 4th time you're descending into like madness. You're like, I can't watch this. You're like, yeah, there was a bit of a kind of a platform at the back of the cinema, and I would just pace up and down. No one could see me. I would just pace up and down, just like, don't want to see this, don't want to see this. Then the 5th time it starts to turn, and you're watching the crowd, like, because you know what bits are coming. This Stockholm Syndrome starts to come in, and you're like, oh fuck, like, I think I just feel like warm and cozy watching this film. 6, 7, and 8, By the end of those screenings, you've fucking lost it. You've lost it. I swear to God, that film is like one of the most beloved films in my life because I saw it 8 times. By the 6th, 7th time, like there was an element of like swapping shifts with fellow staff members. By the 6th, 7th time, I was like, yeah, I'll watch it again. I'm up for it. I'll watch it again. I fucking love Predators. Yeah, get me in there. Like, there's something so comforting, right, about rewatching films, and that normally is in the guise of favorite films. But try and rewatch a film that you kind of just think is okay 1,000,000 times, and you'll make a new favorite. Just force yourself to enjoy it. It's like when you're younger and you don't know if you like the Smiths, you know. But once you listen to them 3 times, you get it. You get it. So I just wanted to start with that. I thought it was like a funny thought process that I had. I just want to touch on, I finished the Black Mirror season. That's actually a lie. I didn't watch the USS, whatever it's called, the last episode, because I didn't see the first one, and I just can't be I'm kind of done, right? So you'll get the vibe of what I'm about to say. I was watching them in a random order, but I finished them by watching Plaything with Malcolm what's his name? Malcolm. Anyway, I think I just said his character name from the thick of it. It's Malcolm Tucker. Did I just say his character name? Anyway, that guy. And Hotel Reverie. If you want the synopses to Plaything and Hotel Reverie, then Google them. Long story short, let's just wrap this Black Mirror chat on this podcast up because I'm done with it, right? What I've said before, I will say again in summary. Black Mirror is not predictable from the first act, but it's predictable from the second act. Once you know where it's going, you can see the end of the road, you're over the hill. Oh yeah, it's normally depressing. Do I want to watch that? Probably not. And with Plaything and Hotel Reverie, just more of the same. I'm like, yes, it's a good idea, but I actually wish it was 20 minutes, you know, just... And I found myself finishing off Hotel Reverie yesterday, and I was like... you just get so tuned into that style of writing, and I can hear Charlie Brooker in there so much, and I'm just fucking sick of it. And you know what? I'm going to move on. I know people love that show, so I'm sorry. I think I prefer Black Mirror when it was a bit more rough and ready, when it originated on Channel 4, and it was a bit more like, I don't know, the Hollywood actors and the production value is fantastic. Kind of want to go back. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Another piece of news to touch on. I heard from my fellow podcasters and good friends, James and George, who do the Pulp Kitchen movie podcast. If you don't listen to that, go have a listen to it. They're brilliant. They've just hit 100k followers on Instagram for their podcast profile, and they deserve it. I went to their pub quiz last Christmas. I'm a big friend of the show, and they're very best friends of this show. I heard from them that Alfonso Cuaron is tipped to direct the upcoming Bond. A Bond film which we don't have a Bond for, but we suspect it's probably going to be maybe Harris Dickinson, maybe, it probably won't be now, he's doing the Beatles thing actually, but maybe Aaron Taylor-Johnson. So we don't know who the Bond is, but we might know who the director is. We know that the producers are David Heyman, who produced Harry Potter. And Alfonso Cuaron, I think, would be a great choice to direct a Bond. Why? Because he has the creative and artistic chops to make something that's creatively valuable. We've seen that time and time again with Alfonso Cuaron. But he always he can pair that with scale. So, for example, Gravity. I don't think the film Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney flapping around in space like a pair of windsocks, I don't think that's like lasted in the public consciousness very much necessarily. I wouldn't say that it's a beloved film. But I tell you what, it made a fucking impact. The action was solid, and it also felt, like I say, creatively valuable. And I think in the year it came out, it was kind of in the awards conversation. The best example though is Harry Potter, the third film, Prisoner of Azkaban. He took that franchise, transformed it into something so much darker, more adult, which the book required, by the way. It wasn't like he just pulled it out of his arse. More adult and, back to that phrase, more creatively valuable. Just, there was more, it was richer, there was more heft to it. And he left it in a place where the producers and future directors of Harry Potter could take it in a far more interesting direction because of him, right? So that's a British property that he has taken and excelled in and projected to far better heights. And he's also dealt with like the casting of major characters in that British property. So Lupin, Sirius Black, Wormtail, I think. Is that his name? God, I'm really shit with like recalling names live on this pod. Anyway, so I just think he's shown through that he has the chops to take a British property and smash it. And but also not do it in a thin throwaway way. Do it in a way where it's really going to last. Like Prisoner of Azkaban's not my favorite Harry Potter, but it remains the people's favorite Harry Potter, I would say. So I'm excited for that. Great news. I'd like to talk about my review of Sinners, which is the new Michael B. Jordan vampire movie directed by Ryan Coogler. And but first, I'd like to say that the 28 Years Later trailer came out. This is relevant to Sinners. 28 Years Later trailer came out. The second trailer. The first trailer made a massive splash and was like probably the best trailer I've seen in years. So this second trailer coming out was a big deal. But I told myself, I do this sometimes. Like, what do you guys think about like about watching trailers? If you think you're already going to see the film, if you know you're already going to see the film, so like 28 Years Later, am I going to see it? Yes, definitely. I'm a huge fan of the IP. I'm a huge fan of Danny Boyle. The first trailer was fantastic. Done. I'm in. Do you need to watch future trailers? My opinion is no, because I'm like, why would I even risk seeing something that might even spoil it even in the slightest way for a film that I'm already going to go see and I'm very, very excited about? Why would I risk that? So I deliberately didn't watch 28 Years Later trailer, and I've done the same for One Battle After Another. I'm a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan, and I have not watched that, even the first trailer for that one, because I'm like, PTA, Leo DiCaprio, I'm going to go see it. I don't need to risk spoiling this. And I've got a much broader view of spoilers than other people do. So other people would say a spoiler is like, oh, X character dies in the final act or something. Obviously, that is a spoiler. But I have a much broader view, or even a much kind of like lower bar for a spoiler, which is like, I don't even want to see imagery that might be significant. I don't even want to see something in a trailer that is from a pivotal point in the film, but it's maybe just a flash of it. Because then when I get to that pivotal point in the film, I'll start to recognize the surroundings, maybe some of the props, objects, characters, and I'll be like, oh, that bit's coming. So like, if that's a Mission Impossible film, you're like, oh, that plane's about to crash. You know, like I saw that plane crashed in the trailer. And the trailer wouldn't consider that a spoiler because it's like, oh, just showing off the stunts. But it is really. It's like spoiling the direction of the story. And equally, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, equally, this is just a side note. I also find it a spoiler. I fucking hate this when critics say something like, they'll say, oh, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a final... No, they'll say... Let me start again. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a joke in the middle of this movie that was the funniest thing I've ever heard. Or they'll say, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a jump scare 2/3 through this movie. It's the scariest jump scare in decades, or something like that, right? And I'm like, thanks very much. I'll be waiting for that then. Thank you. I'll be waiting for that. That's ruined that one for me, hasn't it? I'm sure I'll laugh heartily just like you did. Now I know that one's coming. And you might be saying, oh, well, halfway through the film, that's quite vague. You know, why would that matter? Because it matters. Because it matters. Jump scare, 2/3 through the film. You know when the jump scares are coming. They fucking telegraph them things from 10 minutes away. So I'm like, well, I wonder if it's this one. Oh, it's going to be the best one, going to be the best one, going to be the best one, going to be the best one. It's never going to be the best one, if you're thinking about it. I've had arguments with friends about this. They're like, that's not a spoiler. Like, it's not a spoiler for me to give you my opinion on the film. Yeah, it fucking is. Of course it is. Because if you're telling me, God, it's the best thing I've seen since sliced bread and the final scene blew me away, I'm going in with high expectations, which might spoil it in the first place, and I'm waiting for the final fucking scene. James. I ain't got a mate called James. Made it up. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, just calm down. Calm down. Just take a sip of my tea. It's okay, Fred. Everything's fine. So I decided not to watch the 28 Years trailer. Anyway, went to see Sinners. Obviously, they show trailers before films. Saw the 28 Years trailer, didn't I? And seen loads of imagery I didn't want to see. Seeing that there's... You know what? I'm not even going to tell you. Because I'm not even going to ruin it for you. I'm not going to ruin it for you, right? But I saw this and I considered putting my hands over my eyes and putting my AirPods in, noise cancellation. Then I was like, no, you'll look like a fucking melon. You're going to look like an absolute voucher and they're going to throw you out. Like, I can't... So I just had to fucking do it. Anyway, that film's shot on iPhone. Did you know that? 28 years later, shot on iPhone. And I said that to my fiance and she was like, fuck. And I was like, we were watching the trailer at the time and I was like, I know. It's fucking crazy, isn't it? I'm shooting this podcast on iPhone. Does it look good enough? Does it look as good as 28 years later? Do you know what I mean? I've got the juice. So then I saw Sinners. Vampire movie, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan as two twins. He plays both characters. If you want the synopsis for this, fucking Google it, like I always say. But it's a vampire movie. I would say, follow me on Letterboxd. I put my review on Letterboxd for this. This will be, ironically, based on what I just said, this will be a review that may spoil it. So if you haven't seen Sinners, stop listening now. I gave Sinners a 7 out of 10, right? And let me explain that 7 out of 10. Oh, getting something delivered. It's been delivered. Oh, still been delivered. It's terrifying. Don't you think that's terrifying when you hear your letterbox rustle? It's like someone with their hands in your house. You just hand in your just like a big horror hand through the letterbox. Anyway, I wanted to like this film more, but I did like it a lot. 7 out of 10, 3.5 out of 5. Great rating. Okay. The downsides for me were there's quite a lot of setup. So this film sets up the kind of set piece, the central location of like a blues party, right? For about 40 minutes. And in the process of setting it up, it's kind of like a fucking Avengers Assemble. It's like they're off to get this particular singer. We're meeting this kind of past love, played by Haley Steinfeld. We're meeting another past love. It's kind of like gathering all these characters together in what felt like quite a laborious way. Was it necessary for the for the horror film side of it? No. Was it necessary for the story and the soul of the film? Yes, I'll give it that. Yes, it was. The soul of the film is about black culture and black music and the history of black music, right? And so the setup really spoke to that, meeting those characters, these different musicians, and what the music meant to the community. It also obviously set up the fact that there's a fucking nuts vampire running around, played by fucking what's his face, who is from Yorkshire, but he was doing a great. Oh, is he from Yorkshire? Anyway, fuck it. Google him. Anyway, then we get to this central set piece, and you know, throughout the promo for this film, which I have watched a bit of it, because like I was, you know, going back to this spoiler conversation, you know, I was excited for Sinners, but I didn't feel like I was like, it's not like a Oppenheimer situation where I'm like, God, I don't want to see anything about it. I just want to go in fresh, right? I even knew it was a vampire film a few months ago, and I said that to some Sony execs, get me, because I was at like a mingling, like networking event, and they were like, "Oh, I'm not sure if you're supposed to know that," and I was like, "I don't know how I know that. I think everyone knows that." Anyway, they didn't actually market the fact that it was a vampire film. So you get, but Ryan Coogler in his promo kept saying, "This is a horror film." He kept saying, "We're making a horror movie here." And so I was going into it with that in mind, for better or for worse. So you get to this central set piece, which is the party, and the horror rumblings start to begin. The vampire characters start to descend on this party. So then the horror begins, and I start to realize this movie is better as a kind of thriller, dramatic kind of depiction on the themes of black history, black culture, and black music than it is a horror film. Like, as a horror film, which Ryan Coogler himself said, I'm not putting words into his mouth, it's not scary enough. It is not scary enough. It's actually quite a curious film in terms of the horror. Like, the way they depict the vampires is actually quite jaunty at points, like doing little Irish jigs outside and shit. And like, there's nice little bits of comedy in there, and it's really entertaining. But if we're talking about it as a horror lover, it is not scary enough. And also the pacing. It felt like we had this big 40-minute build-up, like I say, which was important to the soul of the film. Then we get to the party, and it really kind of wallows in this party for quite a while before the horror even really is the centerpiece of the film. And there's this tremendous, transcendent sequence which depicts the history of black music all happening within this barn, within this party, where the camera is tracking round, and we'll see hip-hop, R&B, like, it's just, I don't even want to try and describe it. It's a transcendent sequence that could be transplanted as like a exhibition in like a gallery. Like, you would just watch it and it would be like, wow, this is an incredible feat, right? And this is plonked in the middle of a vampire movie. I'm not saying plonked as in it's not relevant. It's massively relevant, but it's taken to such lengths that it's like, okay, it's almost its own piece. It's like you people will be rewatching that on YouTube on its own for a long time, because it discusses the themes in like an isolated way that you can like just pull it out and it still makes sense, right? And it's actually, and it's not, it doesn't move the story along. It just speaks to the themes, right? So that was transcendent, and that kind of is emblematic of like, this film has like magnificent things in it. And that's all down to Ryan Coogler being a brilliant creative mind. And this is all an original film. It's original material. And in it, there are magnificent things, ideas, and bits, and scenes, and moments. And I love that. And I love Ryan Coogler for taking such a big swing on an original idea and bringing so much quality to it. And I'm sure that whether or not the execs see it as a financial success, I think it could be a financial success, it is absolutely a creative success. Now, setting that aside, and I had a fucking brilliant time, by the way. That was a Friday night. Friday night at the movies. What more do you want? Setting that aside, is the pacing right? No. It does take a long time to set up, and it does take a long time to get to the full kind of balls to the wall horror action vampire. And then once it gets to that, it's like balls to the wall immediately. Like, we get to Django Unchained levels of blood squirting immediately. And it's like, when you're thinking about the structure of horror movies, and like, you know, Ryan Coogler's not a horror director, and I think you can really sense this, because the ramping up of the action and tension is just not quite right, and also feels quite repetitive as well. So while we're ambling along all this setup, which, like I said, takes a good hour 20, for a 2 hour, 20-minute film, the setups and pieces of tension are quite repetitive. And I didn't realize this at the time, but that's due to the lore, as in LORE, of vampirism, right? I didn't know this, but apparently the law of vampirism says that vampires have to be invited in before they can come in and do their worst. So I was watching this and there was scene after scene after scene of like vampires coming to the door of this party, and we knew they're vampires, and to a certain extent the characters knew as well, being like, may I come in? I just want to like enjoy the party or whatever. And this happened like 3-4 times. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Anyway, more fool me, Ryan Coogler's sticking to the law of vampires there, and fair enough. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter that that's the legacy of vampires. All that matters is, does it work in terms of the pacing of the film? And it doesn't. It does feel repetitive, and it does feel slow. And I'm kind of like, can you engineer a different way to drip feed these vampires more and more into this film? And it felt like, no, it felt like there was a real lull in that kind of midsection where I was like, oh, just fucking crack on with it. Like, and then my point is, once it did crack on with it, it was too much too soon. It was like, fucking hell, like it wasn't bloody 5 minutes ago. And then suddenly we're like knee deep in blood. Like the fucking lift scene from The Shining all of a sudden. And tonally that felt like, ugh, like too much of a switch. And then there's still these like bits of really nice comedy in there. But this all amounts to me saying, does it work entirely as a film and as a horror film? I don't think so. But did I have a good time? Fucking yes. And did Ryan Coogler get across the messages and themes he wanted to get across? Fucking yes. And so for that reason, it gets a 7. If it had worked better structurally as a film for me, it would have been higher. Or if the themes weren't communicated properly, would have been lower. But I think that's where it rests for me. So a great time at the movies, a big swing on original material by Ryan Coogler, which I love. And I hope that it's a success financially and culturally so that he gets to do this again. Fuck yeah. Okay, take a little sip of my tea before we move on to Warfare. Dripped it down my top. Why do I do this? Why do I keep doing this? I did that in the first step. Okay. I saw Warfare in Berlin. I was in Berlin for a crazy weekend, but I wasn't crazy enough. I went to Berlin to go out. I do this periodically every year, like 3-4 times a year. I really love the nightlife there. You might not know this about me. Film is my biggest passion, but techno is a secondary passion. And I also love other things such as snooker and football and F1. So that's me, but enough about that. So I was in Berlin, and I was there for the whole Easter weekend, so 3 nights. The first night I went heavy. No, I actually didn't drink all weekend. You didn't need to know that fact. But in terms of, I stayed up late the first night, and didn't do anything else either. That sounded like I was doing other things. And then on the last night I did as well. So there was this middle night where I was like, I didn't really want to go out that night, right? So I was like, are there any English show times of Warfare, and hopefully in a good screen so I can hear that sound design that I talked about last week, Alex Garland sound design. And I did. I found a Dolby Cinema showing the original version of Warfare. That I say original version, that's what they call it. In Germany, they call it OV, which just means no subtitles, no dubbing. So I went, and I was absolutely fucking knackered. But I tell you what, this film kept me awake because it's loud as tits. It's loud as fuck. I mean, I obviously knew it was going to be loud, but fuck me. So if you want the synopsis of this film, fucking Google it. If you don't want to hear spoilers, stop listening now. So this is a war film set in 2006 about the American insurgents on Iraq. And it's kind of like most Alex Garland films. It's kind of like the location is distilled down to like 1, maybe 1.5, if you count the street outside this building that these troops are setting up shop in. And we've got, say, 5 kind of key characters, but like a wider, would you call it a battalion? Squadron? of like 10 characters. And I would say that this is the most effective depiction of combat, which obviously I know a lot about. You know what I mean, though? Like, as an audience member, this is the most effective depiction of combat, being in combat, since maybe Black Hawk Down, It really is, and it feels it's in that pantheon. Again, follow me on Letterboxd. This one's on Letterboxd, and I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit from what I wrote there, but this really feels like it's in that pantheon of great contemporary war films and I say contemporary just so I don't have to fucking start naming films from the 70s, but like, that stretches from, I'd say Saving Private Ryan brought along a new era, stretches from there through, Black Hawk Down, through Dunkirk, bit before that, The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, like, these are all films that I like and love, and this is definitely part of that. In terms of depictions of the Iraq-Afghanistan conflict in particular, I would say this one's probably the best. The contender, for me, Hurt Locker isn't close to this, actually, even though it won Best Picture. The contender would be Zero Dark 30, the Catherine Bigelow film, which I think is fantastic. But this is really up there, and it's extremely visceral. It's extremely affecting. And I haven't really felt affected by a combat/war movie properly. I don't want to say ever, but like, when I was younger, I watched Saving Private Ryan, probably a little bit too young. And that is so affecting and so visceral. And then you follow that up with Black Hawk Down and you're like, fuck, it's difficult for that to be topped in your adult life. Like, once you've seen that. Anyway, this, I wouldn't say it tops it, but this is really up there in terms of the depiction of like grueling, gruesome combat. And it does it in a way that doesn't feel derivative to those films. Because every war film was derivative to Saving Private Ryan for the next, to present day, really. And it does owe a debt, but it doesn't feel derivative of that. And what I loved about it was the characterization of this squadron didn't feel, what's the word? Classic. It didn't feel cliched. That's it. It didn't feel a cliched characterization, which you often get, which Saving Private Ryan didn't do so well, in my opinion. It was quite cliched. Maybe it set the cliches, who knows? But it, it's like the nervous one, the cool, calm, collected one, the funny one. It doesn't do any of that. And I think it's because, like it says at the start of this film, this comes from the brains and the memories of those that were there. So this isn't from an article. This isn't from footage. This is just from their memories, right? And so the characters are all there. These are real guys. And at the end, they do that slideshow of like, this actor was this person, this actor was this person. And so that's why the characters feel real and full and rounded, and there's a real dynamic between them, because that's how it worked in real life. And I loved that. And final point to this was, this is an Alex Garland movie, and there's a really Alex Garland moment at the moment, because he's come off the back of Civil War last year, which was a big success. Going into 28 years later, he wrote this year, which is going to be a huge success. And then he's co-directed this one. And coming off the back of Civil War, which felt very politically weighty, it felt very... Alex Garland himself has said that he's tried to make that film appear impartial. To me, it's absolutely not. Like, he said in the same interview where he said that he's left-wing. Yeah, no shit. And so am I. Like, I don't mind that it leans left-wing as a movie, but it definitely does. He's tried to make out that Civil War is like a non-partisan discussion about the state of politics in the modern day. It's not. It's a left-wing. It's through a left-wing prism. And that's okay. Again, like, I agree with those views, but to me it felt politically like weighty. This film actually doesn't. You'd think it would, being set in Iraq, Afghanistan, but because it's, like it said, like transplanted from the memories of those guys, there's actually no political context around it. We're not cut into politicians moving figures in big boardrooms or anything. Situation rooms. We're just in this situation. And this is what it has above Zero Dark 30, I guess. Like, we're just in this situation, And we're with these characters, and they're going through this situation for better or for worse. Should they be there? It's not discussing that. Is this the right thing to do? It's not discussing that. What's the moral side of this? It's not really discussing that. It's just saying, hey, this happened, and this is how it happened. And I like that because in a funny old way, it actually allows you to consider the politics of it in a much more organic, non-pressurized way. So I was able to be like, God, this is crazy that they were just there, like infiltrating people's homes. You know, at the start of this film, they go into people's houses and just set up shop there and knock down walls and setting up claymores on the roof. And this is just a family home. And I was like, God, that's actually so fucked up. And you're able to consider these as it's going on because it's not shoving it down your throat. So I love that. And I gave Warfare a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, so an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really accomplished. And like I say, I saw it in Berlin, and the adverts before this were fucking fantastic. Seat reservations, right? So this is something that's close to my heart, booking the right seat in the cinema. I'll have you know, especially this goes out to the Londoners, that I have a spreadsheet of every single cinema I've ever visited in my London life. And not just cinema, but screen. So it'll be like, there'll be a row for screen 5 at the London West End View, and screen 6 and screen 7. And it's actually quite amazing, like how few screens I've actually visited. I think there's only about 24 or 25 on there. Specific screens that I've been to in London. Anyway, and the reason why I've got a spreadsheet of this, look, I like fucking spreadsheets, I like lists, whatever, is because I want to know what the best seat to sit in is. And sometimes you can't remember, right? Where did I sit when I went to see that Wicked? And like, what was it good? Was it a good seat? Should I go back there? Because like, I want the best fucking seat. I'm not pissing 20 quid down the drain just picking any old random seat. Where's the best one? And cinemas, here, put a fucking picture out of each screen and show me the view from the seat. Why don't we have a view from the seat app for cinemas? I should make it. Anyone watching this, don't fucking make it. That's my idea. So I have this spreadsheet of the best places to sit. Anyway, so when I go to a new screen, I feel nervous. I feel nervous because I don't know where to sit. And I Google this screen. Is there an image of it? Sometimes there is an image. Because it's on like a hire website, like you can hire cinema screens, right? Sometimes there is an image, and I'll try to get an idea of like, what's the height of the row according to the screen? What's the distance of the row according to the screen? And what type of seat is it? And what's the leg room? Do I want to be on the aisle? You know, all these factors, right? And you can't see that all the time in the hiring pages, or sometimes there aren't pictures whatsoever. So sometimes you just got to go in dark. So I went in dark for... What did I go in dark for? Oh, Drop. Yes, I forgot to mention it, right? Last week, I was a story I wanted to come back to. I went in dark for Drop. I went to see Drop at a new screen. It was the Odeon Lux West End, which I have been in screen 1 for various films, but I've never been in screen 2. So I booked this seat for screen 2, 3 rows back. And then I go in... And surely people can relate to this. You go in and you're like, you know, film lovers will relate to going in and being like, I wish I was sat there. Like, that's the best seat, right? So I go in and I've got row 3 booked. But row 2 is clearly the best row. Because I quite like being slightly closer than the norm would consider the right place to be. I like being a little bit closer so I feel more enveloped by the screen and I'm looking up a little bit, right? I don't like looking down at a screen. I hate being on a balcony or anything like that. And for this one, the second row was lovely because it was actually a recliner. So you could recline and you're pointing directly at the screen and you can still see all sides of it, but you have to scan the screen a little bit as well. So you get this real sense of scale. That's what I like. So I go in with this seat reservation in row 3. When I reserved the seat, the screen was not booked. I think I was one of 3 people in there. So I go in, all in good time, and I'm like, row 2 looks better. Do you know what? I'm just going to sit in row 2. Big mistake. Big mistake. And let me tell you, if I'd ever booked a seat that was correct and I went in and someone was sat in my seat, I'd be right fucked off, right? I'd be fucked off. And I wouldn't shout at them. I'd just give them the old British tut and kind of oh, excuse me, that's my seat. Sorry, that's my seat. But I'd be fucked off, right? And so, but yet for some reason, I'm like that guy. Like for some reason, and in this moment, I was like, I'm going to go sit in the second row because blah, blah. Anyway, I get my snacks out and I start eating them. And I've got like my coat here and I've got this Sainsbury's bag full of shit and I've got my rucksack, I've got a drink here. Anyway, people start filing in and I get this anxiety whilst I'm eating, which is bad because I got IBS and it's going to set me off. Get this anxiety. I've caused this on myself, by the way. Get this anxiety that like, oh, this screening is really booked up. Fuck. Are they going to come take my seat? And then the film starts and I'm like, it's like the trailers are coming to an end, sorry. People still coming in and I'm like, I mean, this pisses me off anyway because like, why are people coming in like the moment before the film starts? We'll come on to this. Look, I brought this on myself. Fine. Some people coming in and then some people come for my seat and I'm like, oh shit, sorry. And I made up some bullshit. I was like, oh, blah, blah. But because the film was just starting, instead of going back to row 3, which would have required clattering around quite a lot of people at that point, I just moved a few seats down on row 2. Anyway, the film starts. Someone else comes in. I get trying to cut it fine and coming in just when the trailers are finishing. But we're talking 7 minutes into this film, someone coming in, not in a rush, just carrying popcorn, which they've obviously waited for. Why are you coming in that late, bro? Anyway, that's me annoyed at that, and that is separate to the fact that I was sat in their seat, which obviously is my fault. And I'm annoyed at myself for that, because once again, I'd put my bottle there, my bag there, I'd started eating my shit, and I've got IBS, I don't want the anxiety. But when they come in, I'm like, they're coming for my seat. There's 40 free seats in this cinema, one of which is mine, and I'm not fucking sat in it. My fault. And this person's coming for mine. I knew it from the moment they walked in, because row 2 is a good one. So any discerning cinema goer who's been to this screen will be in row 2. They look like a discerning cinema goer, despite the fact they were fucking late. And lo and behold, they came for my fucking seat. And again, instead of getting up and walking around to my seat, which would have required probably walking in front of the fucking projector at that point, I just moved up a little bit, set myself up, and out we were 15 minutes into the film, eating my stuff. Biggest meal of my life, eating it for like 25 minutes. And then a couple come in, and I'm like, you're so late. You're so late. And at this point, I'm so annoyed at myself, because I'm like, you brought it on yourself. Sit in your seat. And if you want the right seat next time, write it down and go there next time. So this couple come in and I'm fucking kicking myself. I'm like, why? I've ruined this fucking film. This didn't affect my review of Drop, I swear to God. Because I don't think I panned it that hard. I think I was just like, it's okay. Anyway, this couple come in and I feel so bad because they look at their phone, they come to the row and they sit on the aisle seats. Now, they might have booked the aisle seats, but I felt bad because I was thinking, why would you book the aisle seats? Like at this point, I was like 4 seats in from the aisle because I'd been moved down from the center twice. And I was like, they probably booked one of these, but they're late and they're probably looking at their phone thinking, I think someone's in my seat, but I can't be asked to bother them at this point. So I'm the twat. The moral of the story is I'm the twat. And any annoyance I have about people turning up late and any anxiety I get that causes me IBS is my fault. And I want you to know that I know that, okay? And this is me saying it out loud so that I tell myself, sit in your fucking seat next time, because that was the most stressful start to any film viewing experience ever. All I was trying to do was get a good seat, without thinking about the consequences. And the consequences sucked. Okay, final point. Any word on the secret junket? Last week I announced secretly that I've signed an NDA and I might have an opportunity to do a secret junket for a secret new big movie that's coming out secretly soon. And there is some word on it. I got a response yesterday that said, could you let us know, could you give us 10 example questions that you might ask in this junket? I was on a flight home from Berlin, and let me tell you, they said to send it in the morning, and my flight time was 12, and so I had to get those questions done before my flight. So I was in the queue, on the tarmac, banging out these questions, and the questions are fucking great, and I wish I could, and I smashed it, basically. And I wish I could tell you what the questions are, but that'll tell you what film it is, and I'm not allowed to tell you that. So just to say that I'm not out of the running yet. By the way, this is like a nomination process. So like I've been nominated as like an option, and the distributor, I nearly said the distributor then, the distributor gets to pick who they want. So the only thing I've got going for me is the questions hopefully are good enough. And I did the Mobland premiere interviewing recently. So I've got that string to my bow. They've seen that I can do something like that. So fingers crossed I get this. I'm going to keep you updated. Not a massive update this time, but just to say this is still in the balance and we might have some very good news very soon. Thanks so much for joining me for FOFAT, Fred Asquith on Film and TV, Fred Asquith on Film, Fred on Film. I really appreciate any of you who've made it this far, any of you new people who've joined and who are listening to this. You know, this is the seed of something that could be bigger in the future. You are the fertilizer on this seed that is Fred on Film, and I thank you for that. Thanks for being here. If you have made it this far, please do hit follow on the podcast app of your choice so that it automatically downloads, and please hit subscribe on YouTube if you're watching on there. Hit the bell notification as well if you like. I'm really enjoying cutting these episodes up into obviously I'll have the full episode on YouTube, then I've got shorter clips of the different discussions on YouTube, and then I'm cutting them up into reels, and I'm putting them reels up on Instagram. So the Instagram is Fred Asquith on Film, the TikTok is Fred Asquith on Film. Wherever you like watching your short form content, YouTube as well, give that a follow. Just get involved, because I'm excited for this to continue. Really enjoyed it again today. Thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye-bye.